The contacts come in through a variety of methods now. We have internet, phone, email. So, however the message comes in, I try to respond in like manner to them and just get a dialogue going. Uh, but at some point, I want to talk to the man on the phone, and I want to hear. You can tell a lot from a voice. I'm looking for the level of seriousness about it. Sometimes people contact me because someone told them they should, and they don't really want to, but they feel maybe a grandmother said something. So I want to make sure that they're just very serious about making this initial contact. And we'll talk back and forth by phone a couple of times. And if I really think that this is a vocation that has a chance of being authentic, I usually can't tell right away. But I'll invite the gentleman to come to the monthly discernment group that I host. It's called the Response Group, and we just meet. It's a big moment for a man who's been thinking about this, even whether for a long time or a short time, to step into a room with other guys all asking the same questions and all wrestling with the same kind of ideas. And that usually is a big step forward in their process of discernment. All of the men in the discernment group eventually go on a discernment weekend retreat, and there are generally two during the year. One is hosted by all the vocation directors in New York State. We meet at a retreat center in the center of the state, and we all bring a seminarian from our diocese and as many discerners as we can. And I found that retreat usually is when a candidate will make his decision after it. There's just so much packed into that of talking to other seminarians, and sometimes there is a seminarian who's already a transitional deacon and he's about to be ordained. You just get so many perspectives of the whole process. It really lets the guy decide whether he feels comfortable surrendering to this process or whether he's still hesitant about it. Then after that, those who are willing, we begin the application process, which is extremely robust. It takes 6 months to complete. You have to write a 10-page spiritual autobiography. You go for a full psychological evaluation and all kinds of letters of reference, and there's a lot to it. We have an advisory board of clergy and lay people who together advise me on anything they might pick up. They're specialists in different areas, and they might see things that I don't. So all of this gets put into a giant package, which I then send up to the bishop's desk, and he has the final decision of approval. It's at least a year. It's a good solid discernment will often take 2 years before the candidate would enter seminary. We did a feature a couple of years ago on two seminarians who had just entered, and one was a local boy who grew up just, big family right here in Western New York. Another man was from Africa whose family immigrated to America. He's a citizen now and found his way to our diocese that way. So there really is a wide array of candidates that you work with. What I find is that their stories all have one common filter point, and I remember it from my own vocational journey, that you go back and forth on this, and people are telling you things, and you're reading things, and you're praying about it, and you're going to discernment meetings, and at one point you just finally really get frustrated with it all, and you just say, Jesus, just let me know what you want and I'll do it. And that is the thing that tends to turn the corner for guys in discernment. After that it's a real honest surrender of the heart, and God tends to work a lot through that. It was called for by Rome, by the Vatican, and they had been hearing stories from many bishops and vocation directors about men that entered the seminary and really wanted to serve, but were just hampered by a lot of the hallmarks of our culture, which are the top three would be anxiety, depression, and addictions. And there's all kinds of cultural factors that create that. But we see this very prevalent in the current generation that's kind of moving out into the world, trying to find a career path, trying to succeed. These things are really holding them back. And you can triumph over those things, but it takes a lot of guidance. So Rome actually said every diocese must have a propedeutic year. It kind of means a preparation and leading into, is sort of what the Greek word means. That would it's largely based on spiritual formation and human formation. So there's four pillars of formation when a man is in seminary. Academic, we know they got to learn things. Spiritual, of course, they need to learn different methods of prayer. Pastoral, they need to know how to go out and interface with people and kind of gently lead them along. And it's an important part of not hitting people over the head with too much all at once, and being the merciful arms of Christ. Pastoral formation, and then human formation, which is making sure that you as the minister are a well integrated person, and that you're not internally conflicted and different things wrestling with you. And so a lot of the propedeutic year falls into that human formation. So making sure that a lot of those conflicts are resolved, so that when they go on to seminary, you can deal with these things in seminary, but you could also be a lot better, you could be formed a lot better through the process if those things are resolved before you even begin the full battery of seminary formation. The decision to go to St. Mary's was made just before I took over in the vocation office. My predecessor, Father Andrew Lauricella, had a panel of people, and they toured a number of seminaries and looked at various different models. When I came on board, I felt like I didn't make this decision, but I approve of it. It's the oldest seminary in the country, which it just means there's a heritage there. There's a strength there. It's got a real stability. They've been around a long time, and they have so many connections to the local community, and that's a big part for that pastoral formation. When the guys go off, they don't even work in a parish for their first year. Their first year is spent in social ministries in the community, just really engaging with the poor face to face. And there are some times where some guys do a lot of that beforehand, but some guys have never taken that kind of a risky encounter before. The culture of Baltimore it's like a bigger Buffalo in a certain sense. It's very much an immigrant town, because it goes so far back in the foundation of the nation. And they have a port right there. There's a lot of diverse population. It's this very old city, so you have areas that have really gone into difficult times and are starting to rise again, like we have in Buffalo. I just feel like it's a lot bigger, but and it's kind of on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., so you have a little bit of that notoriety. But when I drive around and walk around Baltimore, I feel comfortable. I feel like I'm at home. I try to get to our seminaries once a semester, actually. We do St. Mark's in Erie, where our guys do their undergrad work in philosophy, and then St. Mary's in Baltimore, where the guys who already have a bachelor's degree will do their pre-theology and their theology. So it's important for me to be there. Partially just because of how distant it is for the seminarians to remember that, to just feel like the diocese remembers they're there, and they can contact me anytime, but to physically show up, it really just states that what you're doing here is important, and we have someone going back and forth and connecting with you. It allows me to see how they're doing in the community there, and build up relationship with the seminary itself, and the rector, the formation teams, get to know them as an advisory manner. I want to be able to, and our bishop tries to get there at least once a year. It's very convenient because the U.S. bishops have have one of their meetings every year in Baltimore. It's the primatial see, the first diocese in America, so they always go there for one of their yearly meetings. And while they're there, he usually will take the guys out for dinner. He'll spend a little time on campus. So Bishop Mike and I are just trying to get there regularly and just make sure that what we see is what we want. And there's lots of different ways to form guys, and we've been pleased so far with what we see, the caliber of the formation team. The Sulpician order that runs the seminary, that's actually what they do. That's the charism of their order, is formation of men for the priesthood, giving the church the priests that the people of God deserve. That's their slogan. Vocations work is largely accompaniment. You just want to really walk with a guy through his discernment process. You want to let the candidate kind of set his own pace and explore things that he feels he needs to, And on the other hand, you know when he might be going off into something that's just not really going to help him, so you try to guide him back. And there are times when you need to light a fire under a discerner because he's just really stuck in a spot or taking too long. And once the application process begins, you really got to keep them on task because they think, well, you know, I tell them that they should start no later than January to apply for August for the fall. And when you start in January, you get this long list of things that needs to be done. You think, I got 6-7 months to get this done, and I just really need to almost kind of have deadlines. I'd like to see this document by this time and this by this time. So there's a little bit of riding along and encouraging. I'm an optimist, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they gave me this ministry, because you have to be positive about things. I foresee, I'm going to say it, a vocations boom. And there's some evidence. It's already happening out in the Midwest, and certain dioceses in the country are very rich in vocations right now. A lot of that has to do with geography. But I do see some places that had been pretty barren really surging up. So I expect we're in the Rust Belt and things take a while to get here. But I really, within my tenure, it depends how many terms I have this office, but I really do hope to see that coming about.